Well, what's interesting is I recently did a live with Heather Cox Richardson,
Okay.
who I did not expect to come in and go, "Oh, this Epstein thing is huge." As a historian, I believe
Yeah.
that this Epstein thing is huge. And that's exactly what she said. And there were a couple reasons, but one of the big ones was that this seems to be having a divisive effect within MAGA, that voting for the anti-war president who bombed Iran hasn't really done it. Voting for the guy who would build the wall Mexico would pay for, and of course he didn't do it. None of those things got the sort of purchase to get MAGA divided in the way that it seems to have divided them so far.
In this video, David Pakman shocks Tim Miller with some brutal truth bombs. So Pakman dives into how the Epstein scandal isn't just some passing tabloid story. It's exposing real cracks within the MAGA movement in ways that previous Trump failures didn't. And you can tell he's pushing Miller to think beyond the surface level political spin, framing this as a moment where Trump's whole outsider brand just starts to crumble under the weight of his own baggage at this point. So make sure to watch till the end to see how David Pakman shocks Tim Miller with these brutal truth bombs.
What's your, like, in 2 months, will this still be a story? In 3 months, will it be a story? What do you think?
I think because of the way that they've managed it, this is going to be a story until 2027. Because I think if the Democrats take back the House, they're going to have hearings about it. And I think that they should, and they should model, whatever you think about the merits of the Benghazi hearings. I think probably the first one did have merits. The next 38 probably were unmerited, right? But it did have a positive political effect for good, and I think the Democrats should look to that. I think there are legitimate things to look into. This is a cover. Like, to me, what has changed about this story? And some people are like, they ask me like, why? Like, you weren't talking about this 2 months ago, or Biden wasn't dealing with it 3 years ago. And my response to that is the Epstein story itself is a massive story and a tragedy. And it had a lot of coverage, and just because, that lets some that you watch or that might maybe not have been covering it, it got a lot of attention, a lot of quarters. Yeah, in conspiracy quarters, but also in more casual, kind of podcast, news adjacent quarters. But it became a massive political story because of how they handled it. Like, they are participating in a cover up. Like, what are they covering up? I don't know. Like, are they covering up that there is really damaging stuff about Trump in there? Maybe. I'm a little bit skeptical of that, right? You'd think that would be leaked out by now. Is it just kind of damaging stuff about Trump in there? Almost certainly, right? Is it damaging stuff about friends of his, donors of his? Maybe, probably, right? And so they are engaging in a cover up on behalf of people that were at some level involved with a child sex trafficker. And they're doing it for political ends. And I think this puts him in a very political box, right? Like, he's now it's kind of like Nixon, right? It's kind of like any of the cover. It's Iran-Contra, it's Lewinsky, right? Like, it's more of a traditional, like, political scandal. And he is no longer kind of like the outsider. He is just like a politician, a slimy politician trying to protect powerful people. And I think that really cuts against his brand in a way that a lot of this other stuff that we all were outraged about didn't, right? You know what I mean? Like,
So Tim Miller really digs into why the story isn't just lingering, it's evolving. He flat out says that this could stay alive throughout 2027 if Democrats retake the House and launch hearings, and he's not wrong. That's a nightmare scenario for Trump because the longer this stays in the spotlight, the more it chips away at that outsider persona he's been selling for years. Miller comparing this to Nixon, Iran-Contra, and even the Lewinsky scandal is such a brutal framing because those weren't just blips. They were scandals that dragged politicians into the mud and kept them there. And here's the kicker. Miller's also highlighting that this has been a massive political scandal not because of what Epstein did. We've known about the tragedy already, but because of how badly Trump's side handled it. The cover-ups make it way worse. He even points out that the likelihood that there's damaging info about Trump and his donors may be not criminal but enough to embarrass him and expose his network. That's a devastating take because it paints Trump as exactly what his base swore he wasn't, a slimy politician protecting powerful friends instead of draining the swamp. And honestly, that's what makes this hit harder than his other controversies. The locker room talk excuses, the wall promises, those didn't shake his base. But now, he literally looks like every other corrupt politician they claim to hate. And Miller's spot on about how dangerous that is for Trump's entire brand.
Yeah. And
January 6th did not
I'm
cut
curious
against his
your
brand,
take, like
you know?
the sense I'm getting, it's funny how fast this stuff moves, but like the sense I'm getting over the last 8 hours of video of Trump, as he sort of started to say, I stopped talking to Epstein because he took some employees from me. And then he was asked, were any of those employees or were any of these people under 18? And he goes, yeah, I think they might have been. The sense that I'm getting is that Trump is probably aware that he knew of a lot of stuff he stayed silent on. And I have no, as like you're saying, I don't think necessarily that he was a client in the sense of having committed crimes or whatever. Maybe he was, but I haven't seen any evidence. But the way he's sort of like explaining why they had this falling out to me speaks to he's aware that he said nothing about a lot of stuff he knew about. And maybe that's what he's afraid of coming out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Well, he's also lying about that, right? I think that's it. Like this is just happening in this last couple hours, but he was, talking about, man, I don't want to butcher her last name, but Virginia, the staffer at Mar-a-Lago,
Giuffre, yeah, yeah.
Giuffre, yeah,
I
Virginia
think
Giuffre,
Giuffre, yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah. Um, so Virginia worked at Mar-a-Lago, and then Epstein hired her away, and she was part of a really kind of gruesome sort of sex trafficking part of and where a lot of people are complicit in really bad behavior towards her, which is horrible. But Trump's story, like, is like, okay, well, Epstein was taking people from me, and that's why I got mad at him. Which, by the way, is different from the White House's original story, which is that Trump said Epstein was a creep, and so
Right.
he said he couldn't come to Mar-a-Lago. So it already changed the story once. And then today, reporters are like, "Are you talking about Virginia when you say that Epstein stole staff from you?" And he says, "Yes." And by the way, he shows no empathy or sympathy to what she went through in answering yes. But it also turns out that that is like, well, it's not a lie that he took her from Mar-a-Lago, but the timing doesn't work. That happened in 2000. Epstein was banned from Mar-a-Lago 4 years later. So it wasn't that. It's like whatever the truth is of why him and Joshua Epstein had a falling out, it wasn't this.
Yeah.
So what is it? And so I just think that Trump's handling of this has also just been like his usual tricks aren't working. You know, like the usual tricks of, oh, it was just locker room talk, or oh, like what, look at, I'm going to change the subject, because like they've mismanaged, the disbursement of information on a topic that his own media allies who usually run cover for him on this stuff actually care about or actually have covered enough that they have to protect their credibility on. So I don't know, what exactly they're covering up. I don't know, but it's not pretty, and we know that they're covering up something because we know that they have searched through the files for mentions of Trump and flagged them.
What is at this point, I don't know if you agree, but to set up this next question, are we on the same page that essentially no matter what comes out, it's not going to end Trump's presidency a day short of when it's scheduled to end? Do we agree on that?
We agree on that. And there's a funny conspiracy view that JD Vance and and Peter Thiel and the tech bros are not hating this, and wouldn't mind a scandal that would push Trump to the side and let them kind of consolidate power. I don't really believe that theory. It's kind of funny and juicy and something to think about. Stuff's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually JD Vance. I think it's, and I don't actually even think it's like Elon. I just think that having been in a lot of these sorts of stories back when I was a PR guy for candidates, this stuff has a life of its own. If you get caught up in something, then people start to look and pay attention to things that they weren't before. And I think that is really what is driving this, is just kind of like a traditional feeding frenzy.
So Pakman's observation here is actually really sharp. He's picking up on the fact that Trump's new excuse about cutting ties with Epstein make no sense. Saying he distanced himself because Epstein stole employees, some of whom may have been underage, just screams of someone scrambling to rewrite history. And Tim Miller piles on with receipts. The timeline doesn't even line up. Virginia Roberts was hired away in 2000, but Epstein wasn't even banned from Mar-a-Lago until years later. So either Trump is lying again, or he's just trying to twist the narrative to make himself look like some moral hero when likely in reality, he stayed silent despite knowing some really ugly truths. And that's why Tim Miller's point here about Trump's usual tricks not working really lands. Normally, Trump can just get away with locker room talk excuses or deflection, but this isn't one of those times. Even his media allies, the people who usually shield him, are cornered because they've covered the story enough that ignoring it would destroy their credibility. And then there's this detail Tim drops that officials have actually searched through files for Trump references and flagged them. That means they know exactly what's in there and are actively controlling the narrative.
But no, anyway, no matter what happens, I think Trump is we're stuck with him.
So given that, what is the potential impact of what we might learn? Is it'll hurt Republicans in 26 and 28? Is it like what is it Trump's legacy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that like just on the actual substance of what we might learn, I don't know. Like there might be legal consequences for people, probably not Trump. But I do think it's preposterous to think that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were the only people that were involved in this effort, right? So there could be actual consequences for people. Politically speaking, I think the potential consequences of fragmenting of MAGA, and I don't mean, and I mean it in the broadest sense. Let me rephrase that: a fragmenting of the Trump coalition, because I think that MAGA eventually comes back around to everything. He was right when he said Fifth Avenue back in 2016, and it's like essentially a cult. And some people leave cults, but the preponderance of people stay, right? And so I think that the core MAGA base will be resilient in the face of this, but the broader coalition, I think, has real um, potential for fragmenting. And if you think about the newest people that came in, the kind of lefty horseshoe people, the RFK Tulsi crowd, they cared about Epstein, and they also wanted Trump to be a peacenik on foreign policy. He's failing them on both. And you could see them kind of reverting back either, I don't know, to the Democrats or just no longer being part of a Republican coalition in the future. And then you have an even bigger group, which is more of the younger, non-ideological men who, for shorthand, we'll call the manosphere type people who went with Trump across races, black, brown, white, and who also are just looking at Trump and seeing him do this cover up and be like, this guy's a fucking politician like everybody else. Like, I didn't like him because I'm a conservative or I'm a MAGA nationalist. Like, I liked him because he seemed like he was not a politician. He was going to go in there and cause problems. And you can just already see the disillusionment. I know, like, you can see it in Rogan and Theo Vaughn
Yep.
and Andrew Schultz. Like, I don't like, and that is a significant part of his coalition. So I think that is like the political ramification of this.
I want to talk a little bit in the time we have left just
Yeah.
about like what you all are doing at the Bullwark, how you're growing, Substack. I mean, the success you all are having. I see that you're doing the live events.
Yeah.
I don't even know what size team there is at this point, but like what would you say is the key thing that you've done that has allowed you to grow so quickly?
I appreciate that, man. I think that like the key things were, one, that the fact that now we've kind of expanded beyond this, and we have people from a lot of different backgrounds, like ideologically and experience wise, but like the original core group were never Trumpers, or people who were kind of cast out of the party or cast out of their magazine, in the case of the Weekly Standard. And I think that because we were cast out of the party, because we didn't really have a realistic hope of getting back in, and because we didn't really think that the Democrats, like, it wasn't like a hope that I was going to be comms director for Hillary Clinton or whatever in 2016.
So what Tim closes on in is honestly pretty sobering. No matter how ugly this gets, Trump's still here, but the fallout could be just completely brutal for his coalition. Tim breaking down the different chunks of Trump's base that could fracture, from the RFK or Tulsi types to the manosphere guys who just wanted a chaos agent, shows exactly how this could have long-term consequences for Republicans in 2026 and 2028. This isn't just about a scandal. It's about whether Trump can keep his tent big enough to hold together people who are already questioning if he's just another politician. And really, that's the kind of disillusionment that lingers way past any one news cycle. When you look at how badly this has been handled, it just stops feeling like another Trump controversy and starts looking like a textbook case of political self destruction. That's the real story here. The cracks in his coalition aren't coming from outside attacks, they're coming from within. And if his own base starts seeing him as just another slimy politician, that's a problem no spin can fix. And that's where you really see the bias in how this whole thing's being covered. And of course, you can already see the bias in how different outlets are spinning this to protect their side. And speaking of bias, Are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.